Alright, baby, qu'est-ce que t'as dit? Ça va toi, peut-être que c'est rien.
Voilà, autre là. Okay, sorry.
Alrighty.
Okay. Hey, I think the first.
Alright, I'm sharp.
Hey, the first thing you can do is introduce yourself.
Should I start now?
Yes.
Okay,
please.
hello, hi, and welcome to Gahos channel. Oh, this is not Gahos channel, this is Lucy's Got Something's channel.
Yeah. I gotta get a go.
Yo, hello, hi, and welcome to Conversations with Oba with me. I'm back on another channel. Okay, I'm joking. Alright, welcome to Lucy's channel. My name is Oba King Chabanga, but everybody just calls me Oba and I go by Oba, so yeah.
Okay, Oba King or Oba. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. We're gonna have a conversation. You know, just speak your mind. Say what you believe. Don't try and sugarcoat anything. Alright, so I think the first question I'm going to ask is the first question I ask anybody else, or I've asked anybody else who has come on. Like, what did you think about immediately? Because this was before. But what did you think about when you heard the name of the podcast?
When I was invited to the podcast, I don't know. I thought, okay, sure. My friend is he's very. What's the word? We've talked before, so I felt like the podcast was gonna be something centered around possibly fragile masculinity, because boys don't cry. So I think that's the first thing that anyone who hears the title would think of. Okay, sharp. So there's an imagery that society puts out for people, especially men, that they should behave a certain way, but like everybody just micromanaged. But that if a person were to exist in a society, then there are certain attributes that they should have in order to meet certain requirements, and then there are certain attributes that are seen as undesirable. And Boys Don't Cry like encapsulates that if a guy were to be hyper emotional, then to a certain degree their masculinity would be reduced. So that was my idea of what Boys Don't Cry would be about.
So do you have like any specific commentary, like what you truly believe about the sentiments? Because I can't know your thought, what you're thinking is deep. So I want to know, like, because obviously you knew I was going to interview you. So did you have a couple of, like, anything that you thought about it as far as solving the problem, if I can call it that?
What do you mean? Anything that I thought of?
Evidently you already had an idea of what I was going to talk about. So did you have any idea as far as what you believe? Because obviously I think maybe is that to think a bit about it. So did you hear about
with
the
regards
topic?
to boys not crying?
Did you have anything that you thought about that you felt like is, how do I put this? It's supposed to be heard. Yeah.
Okay, I believe that. Should I speak from like a personal perspective, or should I just speak from a general perspective?
Personal, preferably.
Okay. As an openly hyper feminine gay individual, we have mostly been micromanaged for like the entirety of our lives. So we are told that we are supposed to sit a certain way, we are supposed to speak a certain way, we are supposed to socialize a certain way. Anything that you do, God, if I were to say something, I'm not speaking for myself. If I were to say something that would offend, say, a society of people, I wouldn't necessarily be speaking for myself, but like I'd be speaking for the broader group. I'd be speaking for like the gay person, I guess. So it could be enough like, oh, okay, gay people are like this, gay people are like this. So Boys Don't Cry applied so adversely to gay people, in the sense that we are told that you cannot express yourself as freely as you hope to express yourself, because if you do that, then being gay on its own, obviously, like, it's something that is not necessarily like welcomed with open arms from society, but like being gay and being hyper feminine, hyper emotional is something that would be seen as completely detrimental to yourself. So boys not crying would apply to us in the sense that we are told, okay, sharp, we accept you, but like we accept you to a certain degree. We accept you if you are palatable to, say, the hypermasculine palette. Yes, not necessarily let them hypermasculine heterosexual individual, but like if you are a hypermasculine gay person, you are more palatable towards the society as opposed to when you are an emotional, a hyper emotional, say from a hyper feminine individual. So that's that with that.
With every time, you know, that Takama Okonyana, what. But I guess I understand to a certain degree, and I feel like I understand this a bit more because there was a time with Kila Nkomanya when you posted a video on your status, and I was like, I can identify a gay person just by hearing their voice. Like, that's impossible. Like, yo, okay. Because we're still supposed to have the conversation. We'll have it
on a different day.
Yeah.
All right.
But okay, I feel you. Hey, I feel you as much as I can feel you, because I think the difference between, well, me and you is when I say something that's offensive, it's seen as, I don't know if, good to a certain degree, it is seen as I'm speaking for general, that is cis men, but, or just men in general, but hella, with you it's more specific because of the minorityness of your situation, but I understand what you're saying. Okay, so if you feel like that's the case, how do you, should I say, cope or find a way to maneuver? Do you feel the need to micromanage yourself, just like you're saying the world or the society micromanages you, so that you are more acceptable? Or you've reached a point where you're just like, whatever happens will happen. If I'm not accepted, I'll just put myself in a situation where I am accepted, as hard as it may be.
So, you know, like from a very young age, because the Rahola really, wow. Excuse the vernac. So, from a very young age, because we grow up under the magnifying glass, we are micromanaged from like inception. We somehow inherently like become ideally or idealistically we become prey to the micromanagement because we want to be seen as going under the radar. Like if we are said to be hypermasculine, we try by all means to not be as hyperfeminine. We try as to not be as feminine in certain spaces. So we code switch. So I'd be with my friends and I'd be like the most feminine individual, and then I'd be walking through, say, a location like Zola, and then I have to like code switch quickly and then try as much as possible to walk as many as I possibly can, and in such a way, not just with walking, but like with everything, with emotions and everything, we are eventually, because I'm sorry for like, eventually, because we are always under the microscope, and it's always an issue of, okay, you can't be too feminine, you can't be too emotional, you can't be too this, because if it's that, then you're speaking for the gay people, would it then be that you are weak? You understand? Like, it speaks so much to your masculinity. So inherently we become prey to that, and then we start now living, not necessarily like not the truth, but like we start living that life so as to just keep under the radar. You don't want to like be attracting unwanted attention. You don't want to walk down the street and hear insults being hurled at you for being overly emotional or being overly sensitive or being overly, you understand? You want to be as much as possible to mitigate as much your emotions as much as you possibly can towards the stereotypical, hypermasculine cis heterosexual man. Have I done that? Yes, to a certain degree I have. Am I doing it now? Absolutely not. At this stage, I feel like we've like eventually, like once you meet your crowd, because we exist predominantly in a heterosexual world, so you don't become exposed to as many queer people as you hope to be when you're growing up. But once you finally get to find that little tribe of yours, you become your most authentic self to the degree that if a certain cis heterosexual man were to say to you, oh, you are so sensitive, or you are too sensitive, or you're too emotional, it's nothing that phases us. And then we, on the other hand, be like, why should I then not be as emotional as I want to be? because me being emotional or me crying or me, expressing emotion the way I do brings me so much peace. So why should I suppress it only for me to now exist simply under the palette of like cis heterosexual people? So, yeah.
I think if I'm going to speak from a personal perspective, everyone in their own right, to a certain degree, I feel like experiences the same thing. Because Lena, right now, there are certain things I'm not allowed to say about certain people, regardless of whether I believe in that or not. So when I'm in a particular space, I have to mitigate what I say. When I'm with other people, I can speak freely because there's less fear of being judged or labeled something, because now you're with your tribe, like you put it. So this is, hey, Surin, I like the fact that every one of you guys has been teaching me something different.
I'm glad to hear that.
And I hope anyone or everyone else who watches or listens experiences the same thing, because that's the whole goal, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to ask you the question now about it. When was the last time you cried? And if you don't mind sharing, why were you crying?
Alright. Okay, honestly, like the last time I cried was such a silly thing. I was watching some series. I'm not even lying. And then the series, it was like a season finale, and the series was coming to an end. Like, it was literally the season series finale, like the grand finale, and it had such a sad ending, but it was beautiful. So that's why I was crying. But like, it's nothing that deep, if you will. So I don't know. Do you want me to be crying?
I don't want you to cry, but I want to understand, because kind of the whole point is I want to know how, especially when it has to do with pain, what the crying does for you, how it makes you feel, things like that. Yeah.
Alright, then I'll speak about like a different experience, not necessarily the time when. I remember when I was back in school, yeah. So I was very determined, like as a student. I think I was one of those students who worked very hard, but not necessarily as smart as like other students did. So I'd read and like make notes and mind maps and everything. So like, okay, I'd set goals for myself. I'm like, okay, these are the goals that I want to set for myself. Yada 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 yada. I think this is like in third year going into fourth year, or fourth year going into fifth year of law school. So sharp. Then everything is fine, I get. And then we go in. I'm so prepared. Like my CAs are very good. They're in their like high 70s. I'm like, okay, I got this. Oh, I'm so sorry. Should I proceed?
Yeah.
Alright. So my CAs are in the high 70s and everything. I'm like, okay, I got this. I go into the exam and I write the exam and I feel like, okay, I got this. So I had an idea that in my mind that I was gonna get like, high 70s and like 80s for like everything, because everything was like very much high 70s, like 80s. So it's like, okay, A's, like, because it was like A minuses and A pluses. And then the results come through and I've got like, okay, it's not like as good as I'd hoped, like with 69, low 70s. So like that broke my spirit. Like it broke my, because I had worked hard so much the entire semester. I remember the results, but I had passed everything. Like in retrospect, I had passed everything, but not as much as I had wanted to. So it broke my spirit. So then, and then I get in the room, so I'm crying. Literally, I'm bawling. I'm crying. It was such a mess. So my friend posted and she asked me, like, "Doc, are you okay? Like, did you fail?" I'm like, "No, but like I passed. Just that I didn't like pass, as much as I had wanted to or as I had hoped." So I think that would be, because like I was sad that I didn't reach my target, but at the end of the day I still did. Like I made it to the next round, but I just didn't pull through as how I had wanted to pull through. So that's one, like it was one of the saddest moments like of my life. So
okay,
so that's that.
So I think one thing that comes with this whole conversation is people always have, or the notion is, when you cry you feel better or relief or weight is lifted off your shoulders. Is that something that you relate to, or crying was just a consequence of the situation that didn't necessarily have any positive or negative effect afterwards?
Well, I think it's different for people. Because in my head, I think it helps. I think crying helps, but not necessarily just crying. You understand?
Mm.
I feel like if you express your emotions and then you don't bottle them, that's what would help. If I were to go through a certain traumatic experience and then I were to bottle it up and then even just thinks I'm okay, obviously I'm not gonna be fine, you understand?
Mm.
And then it is up until now I start opening up and telling you, Doc, and this is what I went through and this is how it made me feel about. So then I would feel that burden being lifted off of me,
Mm.
even though it's not necessarily with crying about. Sometimes like I would tell you, okay, this is what I went through and like this is how I'm feeling. I'm still feeling hurt, and then I'm telling you, okay, I am feeling hurt, but me telling you is I feel the burden being lifted off me, but it's not necessarily taking away the pain or like mitigating the pain that I'm going through. It is only up until I start now crying and letting all those emotions that I've been bottling in out that I now start feeling better. Is it a consequence? In my perspective, I don't think it's a consequence. I think it is just like an emotion that would help you get better when you are,
So it doesn't necessarily solve anything, but it is, I don't know, like a stepping stone towards.
I think it does solve. I think it solves like the internalized pain that you've been going through, or if it's not just pain, it helps if like you were going to say like knocking your little toe, pinky toe on the table, and then you scream. Is that a consequence of you knocking it down, or is it a way of you letting out the pain? In the same way that if you were to hit the table, whatever, with your pinky toe, and then you start crying, in a certain way, is it a consequence, or is it you trying to like let out the pain that you understand? Like, it's the little things. I think it's not a consequence. I think it's you addressing the emotions or the pain or the feelings that you're going through.
Okay. What about to right?
Yeah.
So is that what happened with you?
When I cried for my marks,
Mm.
I don't know, but like the funny thing is afterwards I felt fine. So I think it did. I think me letting it out, because I'd be like, I had been working so hard the entire semester, and then I'm like, but like these are such mediocre marks for a person who's been working as hard and as diligently as I was. So I think it is. I think it did help. So that's how I feel.
Okay.
But my feelings are not facts. So yeah,
They are your facts.
that's true.
Alright. So I think, yeah. Is there, like, strictly for men or males or whatever, what do you have to say as far as them allowing themselves to cry if you feel like, because from your perspective it really does help.
Yeah.
So do you, like, if you're to advise, I'm sure you would, but how would you advise someone who deliberately bottles up their emotions to understand, good, not understand, but give crying a chance? Because I feel like, because we have been so good, we spend so much time knowing that you're not supposed to cry because it's not manly, it's not blah blah blah, you learn how to suppress it. So just letting go, just like not letting go of that suppression, helps it come out. So what would you say as far as advising someone to, I don't know if I have to say give it a try?
I think the first, like the way you should first start, because I feel like I'm such an anti-masculinist to a certain degree, but like I feel like the first place to start is to look at why you are not crying. Like, look at the fact and the ideology that, one, masculinity is it's a prison. It's a constricted with what you can do. So start there and start with defining what masculinity really is. Is masculinity all about like physical strength? Is it all about like pretentious strength? You understand? And then deal with, now then, how would you then express your masculinity? Allow yourself to feel pain, obviously. Allow yourself to hurt. Allow yourself to now express the pain that you went through. Don't allow yourself to just only feel pain and maintain that stature that, obviously, I'm a man, I have to maintain a certain appearance and whatever. allow yourself to look beyond that, because the definition of masculinity is very pragmatic in the times that we are in now. It's not just about like physical strength. It also takes strength for you to now open up and start actually expressing your emotions. It takes strength to actually say swallow your pride and apologize. It takes strength. It takes so much strength. So it doesn't necessarily deal with wow, camera aim.
Yo, do another move. Don't worry.
So it doesn't necessarily take like a strong sense in just what's the word, physical masculinity. In my opinion, masculinity should stem from not just physical strength, but like mental strength, emotional strength, all sorts of strength, and physical strength being the last resort towards defining masculinity. So I feel like define masculinity with mental strength, emotional strength, all sorts of strength, in order for you to understand whether or not you are an actual, I don't want to say man, but like if you meet the requirements of masculinity. Because if you then look at it that way, then you will not be barred from expressing emotion. You will not then be barred from crying. You will not then be barred from putting on gestures that are seen as less manly, because you are supposed to only go under the radar. So that would be my advice to anyone who's not crying, the males, that is.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, I think that's it for this episode. Thank you to whoever was watching or listening or whatever the case may be, and I hope to see you next time.
Bye.
Your alarm is about to ring because I hit the snooze button.
I was supposed to do my manifestations at 11:11. That's why they were ringing.